Mr. John F. McManus was born in 1935 in Brooklyn, New York. He graduated with a Bachelor's of Science degree in physics from Holy Cross College in 1957. At graduation, he received a commission as a lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps and served on active duty then for 3 years. After leaving the Corps, he was employed as an electronics engineer in the New England area. Mr. McManus then joined the staff of the John Birch Society in August of 1966. He served as a field coordinator in the New England area. In 1968, he was appointed to the Home Office staff of the Society's national headquarters. In 1973, Mr. McManus accepted appointment as the organization's Director of Public Relations. In this position, he has been the Society's chief media representative. He has appeared on hundreds of radio and television programs, including C-SPAN and the Larry King and Pat Buchanan shows. Over the past 20 years, he has authored numerous articles for several JBS-affiliated publications. He currently is publisher of both the New American Magazine, a biweekly journal of news and commentary, and of the Society's monthly bulletin. In addition, Mr. McManus serves as editor and publisher of Western Islands, the book publishing arm of the Society. In June of 1991, Mr. McManus was named president of the John Birch Society. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. John McManus.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's a delight to be with you. Have a lot of information to impart, and I guess we'll just plunge right ahead. What I intend to do here tonight is provide an introduction to a startling, indeed frightening reality to anyone who's been good enough to give the John Birch Society a hearing. The reality is that freedom for ourselves and independence for our nation are being destroyed, not by any foreign power, not militarily, and not by chance. America is gripped by a conspiracy of evildoers within our borders who are well along in creating a tyrannical world government they plan to control. We call these individuals the insiders. Now, the facts that I shall present are documentable. In other words, we are relying on truth. And we're very much aware of the fact that truth can be unsettling. Our founder, Mr. Robert Welch, once led off a speech quoting Ralph Waldo Emerson's warning, "God offers to every mind its choice between truth and repose. Take which you please, you cannot have both." Emerson's assertion, of course, is somewhat dour and disheartening. It's almost enough to make ostriches of men. Let us therefore quickly balance what Emerson has given us with the far more uplifting comment given in the Gospel of St. John, "The truth shall make you free." Freedom is what we seek. Not an unrestrained freedom, not license, but freedom to do what is right according to the laws of God firstly, and also the laws of our land. And truth will indeed make us free. Robert Welch once stated that all that would be needed to have half the world's problems disappear in a very short time would be to have everyone decide to begin telling the truth. Would that all would start doing so beginning today. In a philosophical sense, truth is conformity with reality. It is truth that the Earth follows a predictable path as it moves in space. It is not truth, but falsehood, to hold that water will flow uphill. It is truth to state that the Constitution of the United States provides no authorization whatsoever for any president to send U.S. troops into a foreign command. And it is falsehood to state, as Mr. Walt Whitman Rostow did in 1960, that it is, quote, "an American interest to see an end to nationhood as it has been historically defined," end quote. Shortly after he made that statement, Mr. Rostow was given a post in the State Department, and they had to waive a security clearance on him in order to allow him to take that post. He was, of course, a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, and we will talk about that as we proceed. In 1916, President Woodrow Wilson campaigned for re-election on a slogan, "He kept us out of war," but he and his staff were doing everything they could to get us into war, And in 1940, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt stated, "And I say again and again and again, your boys will not be sent into any foreign wars." But as we will see later, he also had already committed America to enter a war, this time World War II, and he needed only to have the enemy fire the first shot. Truth surely took a holiday in those instances. We live at a time when many individuals will utter the most obvious falsehoods. President Bill Clinton could tell us in his State of the Union speech earlier this year, the era of big government is over. Now, he knows better, and his refusal to have his utterance conform with the reality that government continues to grow more oppressive should make suspect everything else he says. We should ask ourselves, why was there no response to Mr. Clinton's bold falsehood from the so-called guardians of truth, the national news media? I suspect that they were too busy gearing up for the attack on Patrick Buchanan. Their preferences for Mr. Clinton show in many ways. There was a poet named Thomas Campbell who once offered a cogent assessment of truth when he wrote, "Truth, ever lovely since the world began, the foe of tyrants and the friend of man." But James Russell Lowell lamented, "Truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne." One can almost know from the words written by these men the period of history in which they lived. But what about this conspiracy I mentioned earlier? Is it truth to hold that such an evil plan exists? Does labeling the threat to our nation a conspiracy conform to the reality of today's world? If so, who are its participants? And even more, how can they be stopped? Well, first of all, let's define conspiracy. Conspiracy has three elements: secrecy, more than one person, and evil. It is not a conspiracy for you and your relatives to plan a 40th birthday party for your spouse. There's no evil here, even though your spouse might prefer to keep the age quiet. Nor does the term conspiracy apply if the complete plans of a group taking some action are publicized openly. But if a government tells us that it wants only to take care of us without revealing its plans to destroy freedom, that's a conspiracy. In 1966, Georgetown professor Carroll Quigley, who trained many of our Foreign Service officers during his tenure at Georgetown University, his now famous book, Tragedy and Hope, bared details of a plot to rule the world. The author, Professor Quigley, was named by Bill Clinton as his prized mentor during Mr. Clinton's Democratic Convention speech of 1992. But the author in this book freely discussed the late 19th century plans of Cecil Rhodes and others to rule the world. Professor Quigley called the group a secret society. He called it a secret network. He even referred to its secret records and papers, but he believed it to be wonderful, not evil. And so he never used the term conspiracy. He certainly should have, but he didn't. Now, did Rhodes and the men surrounding him really intend to rule the world? Quigley wrote that its far-reaching aim was, quote, "nothing less than to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole." What a huge undertaking. But the group never publicized this ambitious goal, and Quigley learned before he died that his airing of his discovery about it was not looked kindly upon by those who are still working the plan. Quigley should have detected the evil of what he had discovered, but his 3 degrees from Harvard and an entire lifetime spent in academic circles left him ill-equipped to consider the consequences to his own nation and the rest of mankind of this grand scheme of his. He himself had become an elitist whose arrogant disdain for the ordinary man, especially his ordinary countrymen from America, led him to become a champion of what other Americans would roundly condemn. The Rhodes Plan sought